$65 for shipping? You're having a giraffe! Why is it I've been sitting in here for an hour doing various bits and bobs before recording this, and I haven't had any flies buzzing around me? As soon as I switch the camera on, there's a fly buzzing around up here somewhere. It might get caught on the audio, I'm not sure. That's the way things roll here. Quick update on this thing. So the key bed is now put back together. There is the key bed. Oh, just spin it round. The keys have all been cleaned. I've resoldered some joints. I've repaired some tracks, so we'll see whether I've done a fairly decent job on it or not when I put it back together. But that's probably not going to happen today, because today is a day of doing other things. So we'll just pop that back there. But that's kind of where we are with the S-50. I need to put it back in the chassis. The chassis is really dirty, so that needs a good thorough clean as well. So I said that's probably not a today job. It might be a next week job. We'll see where we go. But now, really back to the sort of the grumblings of this video. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. So why am I experiencing so much shipping? Basically, it is actually to do with this S-50 keyboard that I've just held up to camera. I was considering replacing the rubber bushings. Now, the rubber bushings are effectively a piece of rubber that sits over a prong on the main frame, and effectively what happens is when you press the key, it stops the key slamming into the metal frame. It acts as like a cushion, especially for people who are a bit heavy-handed on their playing. So that's what the rubber bushing does. It's a very, very simple piece of rubber, but it just loops over the frame and acts as a cushion. When you press down, you can feel the resistance on the key. But what it also does is it stops the key slamming into the circuit board. So if you watch the series on the S-50, you'll see how the circuit board and the key mechanism is put together. It's kind of a rubber contact that effectively makes contact. Now, if you whack the key down and you don't have something like that rubber bushing sitting there, you're effectively ramming that contact into the keyboard or into the circuit board. And you know, it doesn't take a genius to work out that even though there is some flexibility in the circuit board, when it's attached to a hard metal frame, you know, you are going to start damaging that keyboard, that circuit board, because constantly having that done to it will damage it. It will probably crack it. It will probably break tracks, and probably do untold other issues. So that's kind of what the rubber bushings do. And I thought, when I had this to pieces, I thought, you know, one of the things I might do here is just replace the rubber bushings. They've probably been on here since the keyboard was made. They're not too bad in terms of the state of wear, but after so many years, rubber starts to perish and crack, and then it will fall off eventually off the metal frame that it's on. But as I said, I've been through all the rubber bushings and I've looked at them, and they're not too bad, but I just thought it might be a nice thing to just put new rubber bushings on. So that's kind of what I was looking at. The problem you have with cracked circuit boards, of keyboards of this era, is that it's very, very difficult to replace them. Unless you know somebody who's breaking a keyboard and has a circuit board in there that's in reasonable condition, it's very difficult to replace the circuit boards that are in these machines. Now, there are a few manufacturers that are starting to cotton on to this, that there is a demand for circuit boards for certain machines. I know of a couple of companies in Europe that are now starting to manufacture replacement circuit boards for certain iconic machines. And technology has now got to a place where the economics of a limited run becomes more viable than it was in the past. In the past, unless you were printing off X number of boards or X number of things, the setting up the tooling and doing all that sort of stuff was a real made the economics not viable for small batch runs. Now, the way we set machines up is effectively the design is sent to the machine electronically. The machine will then just readjust itself to cut the new components, and the circuit board can be produced relatively cheaply. If you just think about sort of the components that have to go onto it. So, some smart people have started to cotton onto this. And what I would hope is some smart people also then start to look to expand the range of circuit boards that they are manufacturing, so that we can replace the keyboards or the circuit boards in this sort of stuff with a new circuit board if required. But that's where we are. If I had some money, I think I might try and explore that using something like PCBWay, because you just submit a design to PCBWay and they will cut the circuit board for you relatively cheaply. But I don't, unfortunately. But I think it's a cracking thing. So, in essence, going back to what I was saying, the rubber bushings protect the circuit board and cushion the key. That's what they do. So, after searching around said interweb, looking for these components, I ended up back at the usual legacy supplier for a lot of this stuff, Syntaur, the company based in Texas in the United States. And yes, they have enough bushings to replace every key on my keyboard. Hurrah! I say. Sam and his crew over at Syntaur have in the past been lifesavers when I've needed parts for keyboards, because of their practice of non-working keyboards. They bring them back, they dismantle them, they part them out. Or Sam has also in the past had bits manufactured where, I don't know, a certain type of relay or a certain type of part could not be sourced. He has in the past actually had bits manufactured to put into Syntaur stock. So they have been a complete lifesaver when restoring legacy kit. Yes, there's always been a bit of a charge in terms of getting stuff from the US to here, but it's always been a relatively reasonable charge, and it's something I'm prepared to pay for my limited orders. The problem was, before COVID kicked in, if you ordered something from Syntaur, I could probably guarantee that a week to 10 days I'd have it here in the UK. Okay, using the United States Postal Service, expedited service, whatever it happened to be, but a week to 10 days it will be here, and it wouldn't cost the earth in terms of the dollar charge to get it from A to B. Then came COVID. And pretty much, as far as I understand it, the US postal system collapsed during COVID. Or near collapsed. I think it still was working, but there were incredibly long delays on getting goods in and out of the US. In this country, while goods slowed down, the Royal Mail, which is our primary postal service in the UK, and a number of other couriers, pretty much kept everything rolling. There were some delays, but pretty much things kept rolling. And parcels kept moving, and the fact that they had to keep the parcels moving, because during COVID nobody could go anywhere. We couldn't get to the high streets and the malls, or the shopping centres as we would call them over here. So we were, pretty much forced to do any of that sort of shopping online, and we relied very heavily on the postal service. Now, COVID also caused Syntaur to have to readjust its delivery model. And the reason why it had to do that was because obviously, Sam and Co are running a business which is around parts supply. And if you can't supply the parts, you go out of business. So Syntaur took a decision to switch from the US Postal Service for overseas deliveries to effectively a courier service for those overseas deliveries. Purely because at that point in time they couldn't guarantee to get parts to places outside the US within a 6-week time frame. In fact, a lot of parts were taking a lot more. So I kind of understand what Sam was, where the company was going. It wanted to maintain its supply chain. So the only way to do that was to swap to an international courier service. So the question is, will I be ordering from these bushings? Not at the moment. To buy enough bushings to cover every key on this keyboard will cost me about $45 roundabouts. Syntaur sell these at about 60 cents something. And to be honest, I kind of would pay that to refurbish this keyboard with the right bushings. But a $65 courier charge is larger than the cost of my order, and it just now makes no economic sense for me to order from Syntaur. This is a real shame for me, because Syntaur carries a lot of the parts that I may need, but my orders will always be in the tens of dollars and not the hundreds of dollars. And it's the hundreds of dollars that would probably make a $65 courier charge worthwhile. But if you're only ordering parts that, a lot of the parts that I would order from Syntaur would be, maybe cents, or typically, $3, $4, $5, $6, $10. Not very much more than that. So all of a sudden I've gone from $10 plus probably $10 delivery as it was to now $10 and $65 delivery, which kind of just makes the whole thing not economical. So my plea to Sam is to re-examine his policy. We are now coming out of COVID. Definitely in the UK, everything has opened up. You're pretty free apart from certain things like going into a hospital. You still have to wear a mask. If you're going on an airplane, you still have to wear a mask. But, please re-examine this policy. Even eBay's international delivery, which is a utter disaster, due to the fact that they pass goods through every state in the United States. Every one of the 51 the goods seem to pass through, just to say they've been there, is cheaper than $65. It would be cheaper to do this via eBay. And I kind of know this is a digression, but during lockdown I did order parts from a company in the south of the USA, and I watched the parts travel through various states, making their way from the south. So over the Florida side, they made their way from the south up to somewhere near San Francisco. And then they went from San Francisco to Japan, Dubai, and Dubai somewhere in Europe. I think they went to somewhere in Germany before they actually came to England. So they went the wrong way around the world. I'm sure it would have been simpler to go from the south to somewhere like New York and then New York across the pond. But they didn't. They went the other way around. Yeah. So what does this mean for me? Well, unfortunately, I have to say, for the time being, it looks like Syntaur are off my shopping list, unless I need something extremely expensive and I can justify the $65 charge, or I can build an order up, which, given the fact that I only repair a synth at a time, I know I've got two on the go with the EPS 16 at the moment, but I tend to only repair one or two synths at a time. I'm not a repair shop. I do have a day job. So it just doesn't make any sense for me. So unfortunately, Syntaur, I won't be buying from you because your shipping is too expensive for the parts that you're offering. Now, the question really is to everybody else out there: are you experiencing high shipping charges when you're sourcing components from the USA or Canada? Let me know. Drop comments below, because it'll be interesting to see what other people have or are experiencing, because a lot of the parts for these machines are coming from suppliers that seem to be based in the US or Canada. There are a few houses in the supply houses in the UK and Europe that do stuff, but a lot of the stuff that I'm trying to source tends to be companies based on that side of the pond rather than this side of the pond. So as I say, drop comments below, and on that one, it's a bit of a negative one, but live long and prosper. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.